Hello cats of the Spaciverse, it's Jules here. I write and illustrate children's books and have been published since 2012, and that both feels like forever and also like it's only just happened. Weird. Last week my latest book was launched, and I thought I'd take you through that process so that it might give you some ideas of how you can launch yours. You need to have something cunning up your sleeve, like a fox. Vincent and the Mermaid is the second in my Vincent books. He's a vegetarian vampire bat who hates the sight of blood, but in the second book he helps a mermaid who loves to bake but cannot bear to see her muffins and turnovers disintegrate under the sea's influence. This story started to form in my head in the first lockdown of March 2020, and I spent most of that summer kind of forming it, and then I took it to see my publisher, who had some great ideas about how to expand it so that we can look at a theme of the sea floor as well as telling the story. It took a lot longer than I might normally have taken to write a picture book, but it went from 32 to 66 to 96 pages. Almost 4 years in the making, but it's here at last. And so, to the launch. Back in the early summer of last year, I was approached by a theatre company who had an idea to maybe put on one of my stories. So between the theatre company, my publisher and myself, we determined that it would be a great way to launch this new book that would be coming out about the same time. And this was it. I only got a little shot of the beginning because I was really nervous and I just wanted to sit and watch it. Horsebox Theatre, who put on the show, have an amazingly great reputation on the island, and because of that, and maybe a little because of the title of the book, the show sold out. I was absolutely amazed and thrilled. This was a really great start to the launch of the book. Initially, I had the idea of running a sea-themed junk modelling workshop straight after, but I had to put that on hold because, as some of you may know, my husband has been pretty sick and I couldn't really commit to all the things that I wanted to do. So another artist held it instead of me, and this is what it looked like. Again, absolutely great. She did a marvellous job, and it was really, really busy. If you like arts and crafts and you like a bit of sticking and sellotaping and drawing, it doesn't have to be anything really tricky to manage. If you've just got a little something, a little activity for your families or for your children to take part in, it kind of sustains and manages that interest in your book just a little bit longer. Long enough, maybe, for them to decide to buy your book. For example, if you have engaged a school or a library, or if you're at a craft market, you could make something related for your audience to do and take home with them. Written a story about bees? Why not get them to make bee bombs? A story about dinosaurs? Have some colouring pens and dinosaurs to colour in, or take some dinosaur models to play with. Another part of my plan that I just had to put on hold was to go in and visit schools. This is something you could do. You could go in and see a class or maybe just a small group of children. Read them your story and engage with them by asking them questions about it or things related to it. But if you've got a class full of 5-year-olds, don't be too surprised if you get to know about Auntie Maud's false teeth and your next door neighbour's dog. Have a little task for them to do, like a word search or a colouring thing or maybe a puzzle. Make sure that the school prime the parents before you actually get to school. It's a good idea to let the parents know that you're going to be there, so that at the end of the day, perhaps they're going to come and buy a book from you. In my experience, it's best to do afternoon visits, because if you go in the morning, by the time the children have had lunch and then had their afternoon session, they've totally forgotten about you. If you can get the school to send out in their newsletter an author visit, or also by text, sometimes they can text the parents just before school pickup time to remind them that you're coming. You're much more likely to sell a book that way. My current plan for my own book is to make a puppet show. This could work well because the story is quite long to read from the book, being 96 pages. Plus, it sort of enlivens the plot and the story in a different way to the way that the book does. So, in effect, they are having two experiences of the same story. I have had a little bit of experience of making puppets. Well, it doesn't have to be rocket science. You could just do a photocopy of one of your illustrations and then cut it out and stick it onto a lolly stick, and there, you've got a puppet. Another way to launch your book is to get into one of your local bookshops. Usually small independent bookshops are very welcoming to new authors. Maybe it's slightly more difficult to get into the bigger bookshops, but you never know. If you don't ask, well, you'll never find out. And it does help if they already sell some children's books. However, I've done a book launch in a place that sold very few children's books, and actually they were quite impressed with how many different sorts of customers they got through their doors than they would normally expect. Invite all of your friends, especially the ones with children, and post it on social media. Ask the bookshop to do the same so that all of their regular customers see that they've got an author coming in as well. Soon enough, you'll have an audience. It's also a really good idea to have something that you can give away to everybody. Something like a bookmark or a postcard. Make sure it's got your website address on it and the book that you are promoting and perhaps your contact details. You can do this at home. You can make one and print it out on thicker paper or thin card if your printer will take it. And make sure that you do have where you can buy the book so that if they decide they're not going to buy it right now, but they might want to buy it later, they know where they can go to buy your book. Well, there's a few ideas to get your book launched. If you want to see my new book, I will leave the link in the description notes below. Next week, I'll be looking at good reasons and bad reasons to make a picture book. Until then, I'm off to chew a chihuahua. I will see you next week. Nanu, nanu.